So Yamaha would have had to really screw it up. Woo. Oh, it sounds absolutely brilliant. Bloody brilliant. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another MT10. Woohoo! I love an MT10. I borrowed the standard version of this bike probably 2 months ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that. Wow, I liked it so much I thought it was about time we had a go on the SP version. This is of course the MT10 SP. Now me and Greg did a comparison video of the best Japanese liter bike, and this bike sort of was in a class of its own really. It obliterated the competition, if I'm going to be honest, and that wasn't even the SP, that was a standard one. So this is the SP. The differences with the SP, it has the EC2 Öhlins electronic suspension front and rear. Oh, look at that, sexy suspenders. It has the SP paint job, which is, you know, an painted swinging arm, just like lacquered swinging arm, the blue wheels, the silver tank with the black and the blue accents, so a bit like the R1M-esque sort of paint job, so a much nicer paint job. Also has a belly pan, and more importantly it has braided brake lines as well. So the thing that let the MT10, the standard one, down was the brakes were a little bit lacking in feel. With the braided, let's see what it's like. But yeah, I'm quite excited about this one. So if you're interested in the MT10 SP, grab yourself a quick cuppa and chopsy, roll the intro. So as you can see, MT10 SP, I think it's much better looking. I will do a full walk around on this bike a bit later on, but I think it's a much better looking machine than the standard one. That paint scheme pulls it together, the belly pan really helps, the gold bling, and this has got the optional GB Racing crash protection. Yamaha, you're not trusting me with this? You're fitting crash protection now? But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to riding this. It's, you know, power figures, I think it's about 162 horsepower, about 114 newton meters of torque, 214 kilos, I think, 214 kilos wet. So it's not the lightest, it's not the most powerful, but it really isn't what it's all about. Let's jump on. New glasses, I've got ones which flex, so if they fall off the motorbike again, there's a chance that they may not get destroyed. I love the way the bike looks when you're riding it. I really like this big tank. I love the little vents here, you know, even better on the SP with a little silver, and looks really good. The switch gear is also really good. The whole bike is really, has a really high quality feel to it. 12 volt charger there. Like I say, nice switch gear. You've got cruise, this is fully loaded, cruise control, what's it got, slide control. It's got all of the electronics from the R1 now, including the slide control, and of course because this is the SP, you've got the electronically adjustable suspension as well. So she is really fully kitted. Oh, it just sounds so good. It's one of the best sounding motorcycles you can buy. That cross plane engine is just heavenly. We've got the Lecky suspension in sporty. I could do with softening it off really, but the electronic suspension is very good. The Öhlins EC2 kit is brilliant. I'm a massive fan of it. On the Tuono, you know, it's on the Street Fighter V4S, isn't it? It's on all of those premium European brands have the Öhlins EC2. I think actually the MT10 was the first production bike ever to be fitted with it. So, you know, you may have it on your Street Fighters and your Tuono. It was the MT10 which had the original and the first one to have that electronic Öhlins, and it is really good. Whoa! Now the great thing about the MT10 is there's a whole host of setups you can do with the electronics, and you know, modern bikes these days, sort of MT10 included, your whole riding experience can really be impacted if you don't have the bike set up correctly. You know, there's so many gizmos, so much electronics, so much changes to the throttle response and all the other bits and pieces. If you set it up wrong, you can really screw it up, and that's even more so when you've got electronic suspension in the mix as well. So I've spent a little bit of time on this bike yesterday. I went out, I've played around with the settings. You've got 3 different power maps on this bike, all making the same power. It's just throttle response. So I've got this in the A mode, which is the most aggressive, and it is quite aggressive in the A. It is quite aggressive in the A. I've also turned off the wheelie control, so you can isolate wheelie control from traction control. So I've turned off the wheelie control because this bike does love to lift the front wheel. And I've also gone and played with electronic suspension, 3 automatic suspension settings and 3 manually adjustable suspension settings, but you continue to adjust all of them. Obviously the automatic stuff is where the bike monitors the road surface and makes changes, whereas the manual stuff is completely manual, so it won't sort of override anything and change anything depending on what it thinks the surface is doing. So I'm using the automatic one because this is just on the road. Maybe if you're going on track you'd want the manual settings, but I've just basically increased the... You can't increase the preload, it's semi-active, but I've increased the damping so it's a bit stiffer. You can also go in and you can adjust sort of brake support, you can adjust support in the corners. I really like the way they've separated the electronics around the electronic suspension on this. The options are very clear, very easy, you know, like front support, rear support. And I've never seen another electronically clad bike which lets you adjust it, I think, in that much detail and is that user friendly. So yeah, I really like that. Oh, that engine just sounds so good. The riding position on the MT10, you know, it's exactly the same as the standard one, so you're quite upright on this bike. You know, your arms, your handlebars are quite high. You know, so you're sat right up, the handlebars are high, you've got a big wide tank in front of you, so it's quite a substantial tank to wrap your legs around. The pegs are at a nice height, sort of directly below your hips. It's not a particularly aggressive position, it's a comfortable sort of road position. Oh. Woo! Oh, the front's a bit lively. Anyway, I'm getting a bit carried away already. But it's a comfortable position, you know, it's a great road bike position, I think. A very, very good road bike position. I mean, I'd like a little bit more weight on the front, you know, because I quite like aggressive nakeds. This is a little bit more comfortable. You know, perhaps if you're going to use your naked on track as well as the road, perhaps this position wouldn't be quite so good on track. But it certainly makes a really nice sort of road bike position. And the throttle and power from this bike, you know, it's divine, that engine. I can't understand for the life of me why more manufacturers haven't done a cross-plane 4-cylinder. It's brilliant. I mean, this really feels very, very, very similar to the Street Fighter V4, the Tuono V4. I mean, it's just made this straight 4 behave like a V4. I mean, it really has, but you've still got the manners of a straight 4, so it's very smooth. I think initially when you go on the throttle, it's a lot of mid-range. So my only criticism about the sort of throttle response with this engine, it is, you know, it can be a little bit, it can take you by surprise at times. It's like incredibly strong at certain areas of the rev range and it gets a bit weaker again. So maybe it's not that consistent. Maybe it's not as consistent as a V4 sort of power delivery, but it's definitely got that sort of mid-range bump that V4s have. And I guess it dies off a little bit towards the top, where a V4 may pull a bit stronger at the top. But it's bloody brilliant for a road bike, having this engine and this response. And you say you drop down to 3,000 revs and it's just gorgeous. It's just gorgeous on the lower rev range. You open the throttle and you've got a load of power sort of right there. But I think maybe the response I'm talking about is due to sort of Euro 5 stuff. So maybe if you had it mapped, you know, you got rid of the cat, you'd get that power as it should be. It could just be the whole Euro 5 thing, which is making the throttle response a little bit sort of wavy, you know. But yeah, I'm being critical, but you know, I'm comparing it to other bikes. The old MT10 was awfully snatchy. This isn't snatchy. It's a little bit laggy. If you rev it, there's a split second between you opening the throttle and it revving. Again, all probably down to those horrible people, those horrible Euro bureaucrats who insist on ruining our motorcycles. Bloody bureaucrats. So 7, it lunges forward about 7,000 revs as well, so you've got a very peaky bit about 7, and when you're running it with the wheelie control off, you have to be a little bit careful because it does love to lift the front. The main issue I had with the original MT10 was the front brake. When I got on this, I was expecting to I've forgotten they had braided lines on this, and I was expecting to find that usual poor Japanese front brake, but this is much better, much better than the standard MT10. I thought this had a Brembo master cylinder and the standard one didn't. It was that much of a difference, but it's much better. There must be a different pad material, and of course the braided lines, but the front brake is much improved. It's still not European levels of performance, but it's much more initial feel, much more initial bite than the standard bike. So yeah, definitely worth the braided line upgrade there. I also have the Super Duke Evo at home at the moment, so shortly me and Greg are going to be doing a comparison between this MT10 SP and the Super Duke Evo to see which is the best, and I think that's going to be a really difficult shootout. I mean, I love a Super Duke, Greg loves the Super Duke as well, but you know, this is so good, you know, it's going to be really close. So if you're interested in the MT10 or you're thinking of a Super Duke as well, then you better subscribe, because we're going to be doing a full comparison between the two. And I rode the Super Duke this morning as I picked it up from KTM, and I've jumped on this now and I still don't know which one I prefer, you know, so that's going to be a real toughie. They're both absolutely brilliant, but which we prefer, you have to subscribe to see. This is a good bit of road, fantastic bit of road, ruins by white vans. So I've got the suspension set up with extra support in the corners, extra support on the braking. I mean, it drops in lovely. I mean, it's got the R1 frame, this bike. So Yamaha would have had to really screw it up to mess up the handling when the bike is running the R1 frame. So it doesn't have it's not like the Super Duke where you've got, you know, a custom frame for the bike. It's just an R1 with the fairing off and some high bars, really. You know, it's a real sort of old-fashioned Street Fighter type approach. Take the fairing off, stick some high bars on it, there you go, you know. Different rear sets, of course, to drop them down a bit, to be a bit lower, and obviously it's reaching. I mean, I'm simplifying things massively there, but it is the R1 frame, and there's nothing wrong with that because it handles beautifully. I don't know why Suzuki don't do that with the GSX-8. Sorry, the GSX-8, the GSX S1000. Why don't they just keep the blooming new GSX-R frame, stick some high bars on it, take the fairing off, get the bike for Euro 5 emissions, and you've got a bloody good motorcycle. There's nothing wrong with that approach. I think the only thing wrong with it is the looks. It looks a bit weird when you've got the fairing off this frame, you know. It's designed, the frame, to have the fairing, so the looks of the bike, I think, suffer a little bit because it's got the R1 frame. It's the same with the Tuono, of course. You know, that's the RSV4 with the fairing off. You know, exactly the same approach. But the Tuono frame, I think, is a little bit more attractive. You know, it's silver, which I think helps, and it's just a little bit more attractive than the frame on the R1. But there we go. Anyway, looks are in the eye of the beholder. It's not all about the looks. Not when you got that engine. Woo, listen to it. With the brakes improved as well, you got a lot more confidence to throw it about. I mean, it still feels a little bit heavy. I mean, it's 214 kilos wet, so it's not the lightest Super Naked, but it's a similar weight to the Super Duke, to be honest. So it is, you know, it's not bad, but it's quite a stable bike, you know. I don't know about that, actually. The front can come up, but apart from the lift in the front on the power, though the actual geometry and the suspension, it's stable. It's just that power when it kicks in, it can lift the front. You know, so it's not 100% stable. It's a little bit lively, but it's predictable. The chassis is predictable. The engine isn't predictable, but the chassis is. Woo! But it's, yeah, it's bloody brilliant. And that suspension, that Öhlins, like I say, I could go more aggressive with it, but hey, out of the seat. It's just, oh, it's just so good, this bike. It just eggs you on to go faster. On the Super Duke, I sort of was raving over that, wasn't it? And I love it. And it's a similar, I love this for similar reasons. You know, that, but it doesn't have that initial off the, well, it almost has that initial off the throttle. In this A mode it does anyway. But it's, I love it for the same reasons, you know, it's fun, it's engaging, this sounds better than this. I love the sound of the Super Duke, it sounds amazing, that big V-twin, but this, the sound of this is just orgasmic. You know, you find yourself just wanting to knock it down through the box early to make it do that whine it does when it's sort of on the overrun. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous thing. And I love the fact now that it's got the full electronics from the R1. You know, you can isolate that wheelie and traction control, which is, you know, if you're a hooligan like me, that's a big thing. It's a lot of fun, this bike. Also, what is great with that Öhlins suspension is you actually get good feedback from the tarmac as well, which you sometimes lose with electronic suspension, but not with the Öhlins. Woo! So light on the front when you go on the power. Oh, it sounds absolutely brilliant. I mean, Yamaha spent a lot of time tuning the airbox and putting openings in the top of the airbox so you can hear this still, you know, even though it's got 75 catalytic converters. You still got, you know, that soundtrack, and I couldn't even imagine how nice this must sound with a full system on it. It must sound absolutely glorious. But, you know, the handling is, you know, very, very good. I think it's only let down by a little bit by the riding position if you want to get really sporty. Like I say, on track with the high bars, it makes it, I think you're limiting it a little bit. But for road stuff, absolutely fantastic. I like to take one on track actually, because of my next bike, my next naked, I want it to be able to do track days as well as the road stuff. So maybe I need to go easy on track with one of these just to get a feel. If you can hang off it enough, you know, shift your weight off it enough without scraping those pegs. But yeah, I love this. I love the standard one. I was looking at prices after riding the standard one. The SP is just better. It is a lot better. I think it's another couple of £1,000 more expensive than the standard one, but you are getting Öhlins, you're getting a belly pan, you're getting braided lines, you're getting a really nice paint job. So you're getting quite a lot extra for that extra couple of thousand. And yeah, I would say it's worth it. I would say it's worth it. I don't think the Super Duke Evo is worth the extra. I'd get the standard one, but I think this is considerably better than the standard one. So the MT10 SP, bloody brilliant, bloody brilliant. Why do people, I keep borrowing these brilliant bikes because I just want them. But if you want to know which is better, the MT10 SP or the Super Duke Evo, you need to press that subscribe button and wait for our comparison. It's going to be a good one. See you later, guys. have a swap of the bikes, see how the Tuono V4 compares to the MT10 SP. It's going to have the best soundtrack ever, this video, isn't it? Good old British breakfast in the rain. Never baked beans are getting washed away. It sounds bloody lovely. The summer we're having this year. This cross-plane engine sounds very much like a V4. Even the power delivery is very much like a V4. How's it going to compare to a real V4? I'm not liking the look of those clouds in front, mate. What's all that about? Nah, it's not keyless. You don't want that nonsense. The electronics are really intrusive on these ones, aren't they? These early ones. These are two of the best sounding motorcycles on the market, really, aren't they? Hey! It's at the sea again. Oh, there's cut.